Welcome to the adventures of self. Conversations with ordinary and extraordinary people as they explore what it means to be self-expressed. Come on in. Join the adventure.
So welcome to the adventures of self, Danny Levin.
Wow, thank you. I'm excited to see what the adventures of this self are going to take us to with that self.
Well, you've already gotten into it's like, is it little s self? Is it big S self? How many selves are there? Well, we'll see how many we can uncover and connect with today.
I'm going to imagine then when it all boils down to it, there's going to only be one self.
Yeah.
And all the others are going to be our stories about what those selves are and all the things, all the ways we want to call it to make the division of self more comfortable for us. But there is one beautiful self. Everything that I'm experiencing right now is there is one beautiful self. And that self of me is no different than that self of you. And that we are the same self. We are all connected. I mean, in this bodies, we're not connected because you're this beautiful man wherever you are, and I'm this old fat guy wherever I am. And it seems like we're very different, right? But in energy, science is even telling us we're made up of energy. And it's not metaphysics anymore. It's quantum physics that's telling us that we're made up of the very same fiber. And your energy and my energy are no time, space, distance boundary.
Yeah.
And so we are what we always have been, what we will be, what we always will be. And so I know that's a little woo-woo to start off the first sentence of a podcast, but why not?
Well,
right?
You're in the right place because that's the language we speak here.
Okay,
you speak directly to relax. Heavy sigh or just easy sigh. I'm in the right place. Yeah, you picked up exactly. There's a reason it's called the adventures of self, right? It is one large self, and we're all having adventures within that beautiful, wonderful self that is, that always has been, that always will be, that is even outside of time.
Yeah. I love it. And for me, I never realized when I was writing the book, The Mosaic, because the story that's told in the book is one story, but the story that I'm going to share with you now is the story of the space between the words.
Mm-hmm.
I never realized how powerful the image of a mosaic was, that we are all completely connected in our love for each other. No piece is teaching each other or helping each other or changing each other. They're literally just hugging each other. And with the hug of each other, the love of each other, that's what keeps us together. And we are one big mosaic, and we may decide, hey, we want to be this broken piece over here, or this is what we are. We're just this section of the mosaic, and the other sections don't look like us. But we're all, when we go up or go over or see it differently, we see that we're all connected in this one mosaic. And there are different color patterns and different shapes and sizes, but we are all part of the same artistry of this world.
And I think it's interesting because we were speaking last week just to kind of prep for this, and you were telling me quite an unusual story about the creating of the mosaic.
Yes.
I don't know if you want to speak to that.
Oh my God. Well, let's put it this way. Before I started writing the book, all my hair was black.
For listeners, it's less black now. It's
more
all
gray. White now. And what happened was something that I never really could ever have anticipated. I had written a story for a hotel that had no story. They had hired me to tell their story, and they brought me over to Hawaii. It was the most anticipated hotel opening of 2013. And I got there and they said, we want you to write the story of the hotel. And I said, great, what is that story? I'm happy to do it. They said, no, you don't understand. We don't have a story. We want you to create a story. We want you to feel the land and the place here, and we want you to feel what you think the story is. And I said, okay, well, why do you think people will come here? And they said they come here to Hawaii to fall in love. This is a place of love, and people want to experience that love. So I ended up taking their core values and creating characters from their core values. And it was really interesting because one of the characters that I created was the guy every guy dreams of being. He was the best rower and the best archer, and the best of friends to people. He was the greatest hunter and the greatest keeper of peace. And I ended it by saying, and every night he went home with another woman because every woman on the island wanted to be with him. And the hotel said, whoa, whoa, whoa. The story's great until those last few sentences. Can you change something around? We can't have people thinking that this is like a swingers place, this. And I said, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I didn't even think about that. And I changed about 10 or 15 words. And the new end of the story was every night, though he could have gone home with any woman on the island, he couldn't wait to get home to the one woman that was his woman. Mm. And they went, now, oh, that's good. That's what we like. That's what we write. And so our stories are made up of words. Mm. Those words at any point in time can be changed. And when we change those words and we change the thoughts that create those words, our stories change and our life changes. Mm. So I never thought writing the Mosaic, I thought that was a story that I made up, that I did with core values of a hotel, and I created the story and it was great. People loved it. My story should be easy to tell. That took me 8 weeks. I thought this would take me 6 weeks. And then I thought, well, maybe it's harder because it's my story. It'll take 12 weeks. 3 years later, I was pulling out my hair. My hair had gone from black to white. I was waking up in the middle of the night where there was silence, and I was just trying to write this story. And every time that I would write a chapter that I thought was great, I would save it. And for God's sake, I know how to save a file. But I would wake up in the morning and the file wouldn't be there. And I thought, what the heck are you talking about? How is it possible that the file that I saved isn't here? And then I had to rewrite the chapter, and I rewrote it, and I tried, and I thought, okay, this is great. I'm writing it even better. And then I would save it and the file would be corrupted. And this went through every single chapter. Finally, I had gotten to the place where the chapters were intact. And I was just about to save the whole book. And my computer crashed. We were able to recover everything except my book. We lost the book in the crash of the computer. Every other file on the computer came back. So I did something crazy. I called the characters that I had created to have like a Clubhouse call or a Zoom call with me, where I called them all into the same room. I said, what in the heck is going on here? Why am I writing this and you're not letting me save it? Why are you taking this away? Why can't this, what's wrong? What is it you're trying to say? And one by one, they came up to me and appeared before me. I mean, I saw them just like I'm seeing you, and you may be a figment of my imagination or a channeled resource. I don't know. Maybe you are, maybe you're not, but you seem pretty real to me here. In the same way they seemed really real to me, and these were the creations of my own story. And one by one, they said to me, what you're saying is not what we want to say, and we can't let you write words in our mouth that we don't want to say. And I said, I'm sorry, guys, with all due respect, I created you. I should have some liberty to say what I want you to say. They said, you have all the liberty you want, but if you continue to do it, you will be here in another 5 years doing the same thing. We can't let you say what you're saying. And I said, why? What's so important? What do you want to say to me that's so important? They said, if you just listen, you'll figure it out. If you listen to what we're saying and write what we're saying, the book will be done in 30 days. I said, I give up. Let's do it. That was about 2 years ago that it got completed. It was done in 30 days. Now when I go back to look at the story of the Mosaic and the spaces, the story of the spaces between the Mosaic, I can't even fathom how that story could ever be written from me. I was writing the story that I thought I could give to the world. They were writing the story that I most needed to hear, that they wanted to give to me. They were writing it for me. And when They said to me, when you get it, when you grok it, when you feel what we're trying to give to you, through you will come the doorway for other people to enjoy it in the same way. But you're not removed from this book. You are this book. You are the lesson we are trying to give you. And you have to. And what I realized is, even my voice changed. Even the tone and resonance of my voice changed. The quality of how I interact with people. This love that I feel now bursting through me that just continues to grow, the more connected I feel to this mosaic, the bigger mosaic. The story is a great story, but the bigger mosaic. It's incomprehensible to me that this being could have that love or could feel that love. This love is so much bigger than this being. And it's because we are connected to so much more than we ever realized. I just led a room in Clubhouse today, and this woman was just crying and crying, and she comes back every week and she cries in her room, and she just talks about all her troubles. And I just said, lean on us. This problem is too big for you to solve on your own. You don't have the way to do it. But all of us in this room are holding you. And we're holding you at a place where the problem doesn't even exist anymore, but you're so stuck to be in your broken piece, you can't feel the peace of all of our pieces. It's funny to me that PIECE and PEACE sound the same, right? There's a piece to all of our pieces that our piece, PIECE, can't feel. And there's a piece that we can feel in our PIECE that we can also introduce and spread through the mosaic so that all the pieces feel our piece as well. But it's a dance, it's an interplay, it's a beautiful dichotomy of how do we dance with the piece of our being into the piece of the world of beings. And how do we allow the world of beings to dance and bring their piece to the piece of this one piece. That's the unwritten story. That's the story in the spaces of the mosaic.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thanks, Danny. And there's so many things that came up. One of the things that really spoke to me as you were speaking, also because I was just in the conversation with a very good friend of mine about this yesterday, is how it's impossible to separate the creator and the creation, and that just as the creator is creating something, that creation is also making the creator, and you end up in this loop that while there is a part of you or me that as we are creating something, our human, I don't know, hubris or arrogance or something comes in and says, well, I'm in charge here. I'm the creator. I'm typing the words on the computer. And so therefore I'm in charge, right? I'm the creator. And whether, it is as drastic as having every chapter every night erased and deleted and until a council of the characters actually sits you down and tells you what you're going to do, or whether that happens in a much more sort of subtle and metaphoric or unknown, unseen way, that creation, whatever it is that your heart chooses to put out in the world, as you said, right, it changed your voice, it changed your everything about you.
What I love that you just shared with me is something that I've never seen before. And I want to thank you for the revelation of what you just shared with me for myself, which is if we think about the guy with the big G on his sweatshirt, the creator, and his creation. As he's creating his creation is creating him. My brother once wrote a thesis for college, and he said God's greatest creation was man, and man's greatest creation was God. And I love that. And I just love what you said, because it's so true. And just the story that I told of how that which I was creating me at the same time. And I believe that this God that we feel is up there with a, with a, no, you can't come in, or you didn't do it right, or this is a damn for all of humanity. We are creating each other as we create. And that's the most beautiful thing that I've ever heard. And I want to thank you for just sharing that with me through the creation of the Mosaic. And the creation of the creator of the Mosaic. I mean, it's like I love it. I mean, it's just, and I never saw that before. So thank you.
Well, thank you. It's something that one of the things I picked up on as I was looking through, some of your files or intro and bio, and you can get caught up on a lot of things. And what's nice is there's so much in your bio that my sort of feeble little mind says, well, I'm not going to remember all this, so I'll just see what comes up, scribble down a few notes. But the thing, because I'm aware of this, and I hear it in your story, that where this comes from, and it speaks to the essence of the Mosaic, as you were describing. It speaks to the story you were describing about this woman on Clubhouse, the ability, the beauty, the miracle of listening.
Yeah. And let me just go back, because when you brought up Clubhouse, just the same creation of the book, the same creation of the story, was the creation of her story in the room of people that wanted to hold another story for her. And when we allow each other to create each other, we allow our stories to be taken from us, which is so fascinating to me. Like the power of what you just gave me in our conversation, the power of what I heard in what you say is so life transforming, because it doesn't have to be hard. All of us have our pains, all of us have our sufferings, but we are a part of a bigger mosaic. And when we allow the creation of all those pieces of the mosaic to co-create with us, we don't have all of that pain. We still have, our little piece has all that pain and suffering. But the creation of the mosaic is creating a mosaic that allows us to be free of that as well. It allows us to sit in it and suffer with it if we choose to, but it also allows us in a moment to be free of it. And the process, to me, that has become my process, is the process of just listening. When we can walk into a conversation with zero agenda, when we can walk in and just hear what our brothers and sisters are saying, when we can love and accept another person for who they are, when we can listen and hear what it is they say, when we can acknowledge them and validate them for what they said. Doesn't mean I agree with it. Some of my best friends have the most cockamamie belief systems you could ever imagine. But if they were to come in harm's way, I would take a bullet for them. Because I don't love them because of what they believe. I love them for who they are. So it's just really, really interesting for me. And something's really happening through this process of just listening to people and loving people that is really blowing my mind. It's as if I've been doing it now for 6 months to a year. I'm not sure of the time. I'm too old to remember things too vividly. But I've had thousands, hundreds of thousands of conversations with people by now, where I've just sat and listened to them. And what I've seen, Taylor, which has really blown my mind, I would have never predicted it, is that when a person feels safe in the space that's held for them, when they know that they are loved and accepted for who they are, when they know they're listened to and heard, when they know they're acknowledged and validated, they decide to let down their walls. And the walls, the very consciousness of the walls that have surrounded them, also decide, we're not needed here anymore. We're going to just take a rest.
Mm.
And when those walls come down and we see each other, when we actually are with each other and feel each other and hug each other and hold each other, not my walls holding your walls, and not you seeing the painting that I put on the outside of my silo to make you think that I'm a good guy. But when all that's gone and we're just standing in front of each other, holding each other, miracles happen. I've watched people, like, I'm not a healer. There's not anything that I do that is a healer. And people are writing me and saying after our conversation, I felt healed.
Mm.
People are writing me and saying energy centers that have been blocked in my body have opened up. People are saying my relationship with my son is better. I'm finally able to love my wife differently. I feel in my parents something that I've never felt before. Pains in my body are leaving. I have no idea what's happening, nor do I have to have any idea what's happening.
Mm.
This power of love is walking in to the room that is unprotected and just coming and loving on people.
Mm.
And that love is bringing healing with it. It's beautiful.
I was thinking about your image of the mosaic and how all of the little pieces, I mean, it sort of, I immediately go to some sort of Roman mosaic, like I live in the UK, and every now and then somebody will, I think recently they uncovered some, amazing 3rd century mosaic that is absolutely
Yeah.
gorgeous and had been under earth for centuries. And as you say, right, if you get down to it, there's all these tiny little pieces or gems or stones or whatever they are, the little pieces. But when you pull back, you see the tapestry of that mosaic. And because you were speaking about how the space in between that in the mosaic, and regardless of how many pieces, whether it's 8 billion of us on this planet or 10,000 little pieces in a mosaic, regardless of that individual pieces, there's one thing that connects them all, right? They are not up against, right? There is, whether it's space or caulk or some binding agent.
Yeah.
And that to me speaks to love that you're
100%.
referring to. Yeah.
100%. And so here's even the more interesting thing for me, that I never anticipated that loving and accepting and listening to and hearing and acknowledging and validating would open people up so much that they would heal.
Mm.
But even if I had expected that, what came next blew my mind. Never in my wildest imagination would I have ever thought that because I was doing that, the universe would say to me, Danny, we're going to love and accept you more.
Mm.
We're going to listen to you and hear you. We're going to acknowledge and validate you. And out of nowhere, I mean, I sat with my wife, we were having a conversation, and I came to her and I said, baby, something's out of control. I don't know what's happening. I'm speaking and people are going crazy. And she said, oh, you're getting a pretty big ego, right? And I said, yeah, no, I think I am. Like, I want you to just hear, like, will you tune in with me when I speak at this next thing and just hear what's going on? And I was sitting right next to her and she had hers on quiet, but she was hearing it through my sound. And I finished speaking, and normally on Clubhouse, they'll just tap the microphone to applaud. People opened up their microphone and were screaming and cheering. And she looked at me. I had mine muted. She looked at me and she said, gosh, it seems a little over exaggerated, doesn't it? And I said, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Like I didn't even say anything that important.
Mm,
Like it wasn't even that I said anything that's anybody hasn't said 1,000 times before.
mm,
But I think there's something in this thought of when we love and accept another person, when we listen to and hear another person, when we acknowledge and validate another person, that the universe does that back to us 1,000-fold.
mm. That's a beautiful concept and proposal, and um, because the one thing I was starting to think about was, well, it doesn't matter the words that you say, right? It's the excuse me, it's the energy, the emotion, whatever it is behind them. And so I can imagine that, somebody might be healed or, have that connection. But you're saying something, it goes back to the creation making, the creator, of when we step into that listening, that full acceptance and love. I guess I'm sort of going through this myself right now. and,
Yes, no,
and
I love it.
and acknowledging all the things that I I continue to bring in my own pain or limitation, or that aspect of the piece, because and I really love what you are saying, and I think it's really important to to bring out, to dwell on, to really draw out, because we, or maybe I should just say um I can feel like I'm listening to somebody else. I can feel like I can believe that I'm listening and helping, and there to support and love somebody.
Yeah.
But I also recognize that I do that with some walls up. And we were speaking just before we started about how easy it is, as you say, it is so easy. And yet I can look at my own life. I'm sure you can look at your past life and a million other people that you and I have come
100%.
into contact to that say, but it's not easy.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the big points of the Mosaic, of the written story now,
Mm,
not the spaces between. It's a story about a boy who loses his parents 2 years apart on the same day.
mm,
And when he asks the adults where his parents are, because they're the wisest people he knows, they tell him they're in a place called heaven. So he sets out in search of that place called heaven. He wants nothing else but to find them. He passes up on amazing opportunities that most people would call heaven on earth. But it isn't the heaven he's looking for. He turns away from running a multi-billion-dollar corporation. He turns away from being a big voice in the development of organizational psychology, as his teacher was the mentor who started organizational psychology. He turns away from being a voice in Judaism to spread Judaism in a bigger way than it's ever been spread before. He hitchhikes around the country and around the world and sits with people on street corners and has amazing experiences with them. But what happens for him when he meets these different people? They're not the clergymen and women. They're not the medicine women. They're not the shamans and the priestesses. They're common, ordinary people. They're the road worker and the trash man, the blind woman and the homeless guy. And he wonders, why in the world am I meeting these people? Like what? These do not seem like the custodians to heaven. And he just hears this voice that says, just sit. Allow them to tell you their story. Because his father says to him, when he has a vision of his father dying before he knows he's dead, saying, others will come to help you. Don't look at what they do or what they look like. Just listen to them, hear their stories. So he does what his father told him to do. And in 100% of the cases, every time he listens to one of these common, ordinary people tell their stories, He realizes the person he initially saw isn't at all the person that's sitting in front of him right now. And that isn't because they've changed. That's because he just didn't see who they were.
Mm.
And when he realizes over and over and over and over and over, and you get the idea over again, that he doesn't see the world the way it is. He sees the world the way he is. He wonders, I wonder what else I see. Do I see anything the way it is, or do I see everything the way I am?
Mm.
And suddenly what happens for him is he realizes the heaven he was looking for is that moment where there's a change of perspective. That moment where everything he thought the world was at one point suddenly changes and he sees it's totally different. That moment where we think it's difficult, believe me, I know that moment. I've labored against that moment. I've fought with it. I've battled with it. I've tried my very best to overcome it. I've tried to tell myself I can do something if I put out more energy, if I affirm harder, if I believe greater, if I do this, it will all come to me. And it never came. Maybe came a little bit more, but not in the way that I want. When something changed in me, and I can't tell you that it's because of anything that I've done, when this love started to grow in me, a love that's much more than anything I could have ever done to bring it, suddenly everything was easy. There was no opposition. There wasn't, we live in opposition to ourselves all day long. We say, we see ourselves through a glass window and say, oh, that's what we want to be. But the glass window is there. We can't be that. We tell ourselves, oh God, if I were only this, or if I could only do this, or in a few more years, we put this carrot out and say, if I just do this, I'll get there. But the carrot's always out in front of us and we never get to it.
Mm.
And we can never get to it. But somehow when this love comes, everything else dissolves. And I believe that most of the problems in the world, big problems between nations, problems between political parties, problems between ways of healing the planet, would completely resolve if we would only learn how to listen to each other. Hidden in the voices of those people who disagree with us are the things that we can't see in the silos of like-minded communities that we hang out with. As long as we continue to hang out with people who see the world like we do, see the world, act the way we do, believe like we do, it's comforting. But we can't find the solutions in that because the solutions are outside of the realm of what we're comfortable with. They're outside of what we see. But as soon as I'm able to sit down with a brother or sister of mine who looks at exactly the same thing that I look at and sees it differently, and instead of fighting and saying, no, you're wrong, you don't see it right. Can't you see the way I see it? And can't you see this is the way it is? But we become curious and say, hold on a minute. I am so curious as to how you can look at exactly the same thing I look at and see it differently. Can you share with me so I can see it through your eyes? Because maybe just something in the way you're seeing it will be that missing piece that I can't see that will make what was now impossible suddenly possible again. Because I believe everything in the world is possible, except we just don't see a way to make it possible yet.
Mm.
But maybe that voice that we've disagreed with and that disagrees with us might show us a different perspective. And that perspective shift. Wayne Dyer said, when you change the way you see the world you see changes.
Mm.
How simple is that?
Mm. Yeah, he said, I was just speaking about this, I think yesterday, that you'll see it when you'll see it when you believe it. I'm just getting confused because obviously it's a play on the phrase that you'll believe it when you see it, but
Yes.
but to that point, right? It's that perception.
Yeah.
And we take our limited piece perception the little piece of the mosaic, of our individual piece of the mosaic, that may always be bumping up against only the pieces we can see.
Totally.
And I mean, there are many metaphors to use. Either you pull back, and you see the love that's in the middle. And it is, as you're saying, it's literally a choice. Or is it a choice? Is it something that just comes to you?
I would always have believed it was a choice and that I was capable of making the choice, but I just was never able to make the choice well enough that I could make the choice, because I never believed in the choice long enough until this moment happened.
Mm-hmm.
There was no choice in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
I could say I want it or I don't want it. This love just started to develop in me.
Mm.
That was beyond anything that I could ever imagine. And it's as if when you are at 30,000 feet, you just see the world differently than you do when you're sitting in the forest. And I don't know what happened. I wish I could tell you that I did this and this and this and this and this, and that I was the one that brought it on to me. I'm trying to tell you the story of maybe it happened because I loved and accepted people and listened to people and heard people, and I acknowledged and validated people, but I think that's all BS. I think that's a nice story. But I don't believe that's why it happened, because even that doesn't merit this. This is something that I could never have fathomed. I'm not sleeping at night. I slept 2 hours last night, and that was a big night of sleep for me. There are many nights that I'm not sleeping at all, and it's not because I have insomnia or I'm worried. And this is going to sound really strange, and I don't mean, please don't think that I'm any more than I am. I'm perplexed by it. But I feel as it's time for me to go to sleep, there are nations waking up, and I feel them waking up in me.
Mm.
And so when do I go to sleep? Tell me a time when the whole world is sleeping. I don't know. I haven't seen that time.
Mm.
And so I'll get drowsy and I'll fall asleep because my mind I'll watch television with my wife, and 2 minutes into it, I'll fall asleep for an hour, and that's my rest, because I've relaxed my mind to the place where I don't allow it to feel the world that it feels, because I'm absorbed in something else, which takes me off to sleep. So I could sleep, I guess I could sleep in a room with a TV on all night, but why? That's not what I want to do.
Yeah. There's a reason they call it the boob tube, right?
Yes, totally. Totally.
Kind of zone out.
Yeah. So I'm a reluctant lover. This wasn't anything I asked for. It wasn't anything I ever thought. It wasn't anything that I ever even perceived was possible. I was all head in the clouds, feet on the ground guy. Now I don't know where my feet are.
But in your journey, I mean, you have, when I read the bio, I think we spoke about it a little bit last week. You have done some unusual, I think they're pretty cool, and they're similar, but unusual things. I mean, you
100%.
And in that, it feels from the outside that some of that, going off to, I mean, I think you spent quite a few years at a monastery.
10 years in a monastery.
10 years in a monastery. So one would sort of say, oh, well, that's that looking for the ultimate love that flows through, and maybe just took a little bit longer for the program to kick in.
Yeah, maybe if I was a little bit smarter or a little bit better, that it would have happened more spontaneous. But I don't want to underplay the significance of the life that I've lived. I just don't want to overplay the significance of the life that I've lived either.
Mm-hmm.
Like my brothers that were in the monastery with me, and some of them are still there, they're not having this experience right now. My brothers that stayed with me in the seminary and studied for 5 years and more years to become rabbis, they're not having this experience, what I'm experiencing right now. And so I wish I could say, here's the formula. Like we love formulas. We love the idea, you do this, and here's what you're going to get.
Do these 7 steps and you will be enlightened.
100%. We love that.
Yeah.
And I wish it was as easy as that. But it's actually way easier because you don't have to do any of that. I just don't know what you have to do. Because it just, to me, the beauty of grace is that it comes as a thief in the night and gives you something that doesn't belong to you.
It's the word that I have been wanting to bring up, so I'm grateful that you did it, because it's something we spoke about, this concept of grace, because in Christian religion, and you say I think it's not a concept that's in Judaism.
No.
And in Christianity, you don't have to ask for it. You don't have to do anything. You can be the worst person on the planet and still receive the grace of God.
Yeah. There's a gift, and what makes this moment the moment that the gift is given, I have no idea. But here's what I do believe now from this side of the fence. I believe a change of perspective is all that has to happen for all of us to have that moment. Because it wasn't anything that I did. I just somehow, the world started to look different to me. And in that different world, something else came to me. So imagine the language that we use. Just even like I'm still trying to find the formula for it. And I'm telling you, there is no formula, but I'm so eager to try and give a formula that we can do to help us get this thing that we can't do anything to get, right? But I would watch the language that I would say of, I'll be happy when, or only a few more pounds and I'll be okay. Or only if I get like I'm getting there, I'm making it. I'm gonna, if I get 8 more clients, I'll be fine. If I no, but I can't really do this. I've tried so many times and I just can't do it. I go here and I'm always unlucky when I go here. Something always happens. I just look at the stories that I hear over and over and over again from people. And within the first 3 sentences, I understand why they can't have what it is they want. Because the world is giving them what they're asking for. We are fabulous manifestors.
Yeah.
The problem is we're manifesting what we don't want more than what we do want.
Even though we say differently.
Yeah. Yeah.
Crazy part.
And maybe none of that is why it's happening. Like, I can't say that I changed my manifestation words. I can't say that I became, well, no, I don't feel limited. I don't feel like, even as I'm going into this, I'm scared. Like, I look at my wife and I say, I'm scared to death. Like, how is it possible? I'm the most reluctant lover you could ever imagine. Because how is it possible that I can love people? I mean, it was so poignantly pointed out to me when I was talking to this woman. And she was telling me all of her troubles. And I just felt this love welling up inside of me, as if like I heard her words, but none of them mattered. And I just looked at her and I said, you have no idea how much I love you. Like, I'm just feeling so much love for you in this minute. Just feel this love that's coming through me to you. And she looked at me and she said, you're full of crap. You don't even know me. How can you say you love me like that? I mean, no one's ever loved me that way. And I looked at her and I said, I understand. But I guess if we can hate for no reason, surely we can love for no reason also, right? And she said, wow, I never heard that before. I said, I love you for no reason. There's no reason in the world why I should feel what I feel for you. I don't even know you. You're 100% right. But there's also every reason in the world that I would love you like this. Because you're magnificent. Even as I say it, I feel like, please don't assume that I'm more than I am. I'm just this stumbling old fat guy in California that's trying to figure out how to have peace in this place that I'm in, which is just so full of love that I can't even sleep at night. But there's a change that's happened in me. There are things that have brought it along, writing the Mosaic, listening to the characters, allowing it to the story to go through me has been help. Meeting people that I'm having conversations with people, men and women, that are thousands of miles away from where I am, that I've never met in public. I've never even talked to them. I'm texting them on a text message or an instant message on Facebook or something on Instagram. And I'm feeling this wave of love, and I'm saying I'll write to them, do you just feel what I feel? And they go, oh my God, my whole body's vibrating with electricity. And I said, how in the world is that possible? But we don't have to know the how. We just have to show up and do the do and be the be. And not worry about how is it possible, because that's for the woman with the big G on her sweatshirt to figure out.
Like just took me to like a Frank Sinatra song, like doobie doobie doo.
That's going to be my new motto. It's not be, it's not just be, it's not do, it's doobie doobie doo.
Doobie 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 doo.
I love it. Strangers in the night. But that's what I feel like. I feel like I'm some old Frank Sinatra song, you know? and it doesn't make any sense to me. But it doesn't have to.
No.
You know, and that's the exquisite thing. This right up here wants it all to be, we want to have the formula. But this here says, who cares? Like, there doesn't need to be a formula. It's just so easy. Love. And when you think you can't love anymore, love more. And when you think you're at the very end of what you can possibly do, love more still. And that's all that has to happen. And will that bring the result that I'm saying? Who knows? But it's a better life to live, even if it doesn't live to bring that result. Like, again, I search for the formula. But the formula is not a formula.
Yeah. Yeah, the formula that we're kind of going around, but the formula is a choice, or the formula is a perception, or the formula is allowing, or the formula is listening.
Yeah. The formula you gave me in the first 3 minutes of our conversation, that is, it's the creator creating the creation and the creation creating the creator. Somewhere in there, I believe, is this revelation that I never saw before. My body's like hiccuping. I don't know what's going on with it.
It's trying to process all the love. And I know, because I think it's, you know, when I first heard you, we were in a room in Clubhouse. I have no idea which one. And I heard you speak to tell a story about the relationship with your daughter.
Yeah.
That and it immediately prompted me to contact you, not even in what happened, but in how you spoke about it.
Yeah.
And I just knew I wanted to connect with you. I wanted to bring you on this podcast. I wanted to be in this space. I mean, I'm in a tingling space now, and loving this.
But hold it, pause for a minute. That blows my mind. Because that's what people are saying when we're in conversation. That they can feel the vibration, they can feel their body tingling, they can feel electricity moving through them. I have no friggin' idea how that's happening. Nor do I have to, but it's just this beautiful. And I want to invite the listeners. What do you feel? Does it just feel like it's BS that we're talking about? Or do you Like, are you allowing yourself to be open enough to know that love has no boundaries? We're thousands of miles away. We're in different time zones, in different continents, in different countries.
Yeah.
But we both feel this tingling that's going on. And I can't tell, is it you giving me the tingling, me giving you the tingling, God giving the creation giving God the tingling, right? It's just this beautiful feeling of love when it's released. Would you like me to tell that story to the people?
Yeah. Yeah. But I really thank you for bringing the awareness, the space
Yeah,
for that love. Yeah, and I would encourage listeners to ask yourself, because this is going to now then be removed by time, whatever that is.
yeah,
So we can feel it here because we're at the same space, but by the time somebody listens to this, it will be removed. And is that feeling of love still here? Can you feel it wherever
yeah.
you are? And give it back. Can you accept it? Can you allow it?
And can you allow it into the crevices of yourself
Mm,
that you've never allowed anything to get into? Can you allow it to soothe those places that are in pain? Can you allow this vibration of love to just hold and cuddle and embrace and caress pains in your body, pains in your mind? And is it possibly possible that a vibration from a man spoken on a day and a time and a month that is different than the day and the time and the month that you're listening to it has nothing to do with the man that's speaking it, but the energy that is ignited from that, from some force bigger than him?
mm,
That he's just lucky enough to be the messenger for at this moment. But he's, don't make no mistake, I am not the gift that you're giving. I'm just some little broken pipe that it's coming through. And I remember my teacher would have a picture of his teacher behind him when he would teach. And people would come up to my teacher and they would say, "Wow, you're like magnificent." And he would just sit there laughing and laughing and laughing. And people would ask him, "What are you laughing about? Why do you laugh like that?" And he just pointed like this. He said, "He does all the work," pointing to the guy behind him. "And you're giving me all the credit." There's something crazy in that. Like, this isn't anything I'm doing. And I just want to point and laugh. If anybody even mistakenly for a moment thinks that this is something that I have,
mm,
I can't have this. It's not mine.
mm,
This is yours. This is God creating the creation, creating God.
mm,
I love that, what came to us in the first few moments.
mm. I was I was hoping, well, what I imagine, not hoping, what I imagine is that as your teacher was pointing back to a picture of his teacher, in that photograph, that teacher is pointing back to his teacher, and
Yes,
on
it
turtles.
would have been if we could see it, because the teacher would say the same thing. It was part of the teaching, in fact, that we are not the ones that are doing any of it.
It's the teaching, not the teacher. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's the love, not the lover. Mm. Mm.
The creation, not the creator. The creator, not the creation.
Exactly.
I mean, it's just that whole beautiful sentence that keeps coming back to haunt us, to mystify us, to celebrate us, to just enjoy us.
Mm. To enjoy us. That's really beautiful sentiment. Yeah, if you don't mind sharing that story.
Sure.
It is a story, but it is a beautiful story.
Yeah.
And it speaks very much to the listening at a very different level.
Yeah. So I've had the opportunity to meet with some of the most successful people in the world. I've had the opportunity to sit at dining room tables with people that changed millions of people's lives. I've had the opportunity to sit on cardboard boxes with some of the poorest people the world has ever known. I've had the opportunity to have discussions with every single one of them. But I would say the person that's taught me the most is a 31-year-old woman who I've never been able to have a conversation with. That 31-year-old woman is my daughter. She was born with a developmental delay. Her mouth is not able to say the words that she's trying to say. And because we're so close, I understand her a little bit better than anybody else. But still, most of the time, I don't understand her. And for the first part of her life, we would just laugh and have fun. It didn't really matter what she was saying, or because we would just love each other and she could feel the love. But as she got a little bit older, she had things on her mind that she wanted to say. And I just couldn't understand them. And so when she spoke, and I didn't understand her, she would start to yell it. And to her credit, I was getting older, and she probably thought my hearing was going. And so she needed to say it louder so that I could hear it. But it wasn't the volume, it was the clarity. And when she would yell it and I didn't understand it, she would tantrum. And those tantrums could come in a restaurant or in a store, or when we're walking on the beach, or when we're driving down the road. They could happen anywhere at any point in time. And they were really hard, because people would look at us like, what are you doing to that girl? And when her tantrum didn't happen to get me to understand what she was saying, she would attack me. Her frustration would just be so much. She would run and try and rip my shirt or bite me or do something. And Taylor, this went on for a long time. It went on for 15 years. I wish I could have said I was sensitive enough to understand it and feel it. And I tried with every cell in my being to understand what she was doing and why what was happening to her was happening, and how I could understand her and what was going on. Finally, she was running to me in the midst of her rage, and I looked at her in the eye, which she never lets me do. And I said, Elisa, you know I love you more than anything in this world. I would give every single thing I have to understand those 6 words you just said to me. I just can't understand them. Can you try and talk to me in a way that doesn't have words? Can you try and communicate to me without words? Find a way to tell me what you want to say without having to speak it to me. That little son of a gun stopped dead in her tracks. Her rage, the look of rage on her face became this smile. That smile melted me like to the soul. My heart and soul melted. And she smiled at me in perfect English. She said, I am Daddy. And I said, I'm sorry, what the heck are you talking about? How are you doing that? And she took her forefinger and put it to the side of her head, which made me understand that she had been putting thoughts in my head all the time. She had been speaking to me telepathically. And the crazy thing, Taylor, is that I heard her. There were times that I heard her, but I didn't even believe that it was possible. How do you believe that someone who can't even speak the language is talking to you telepathically? And I didn't even know that the thoughts that she was giving me, she was even capable of thinking. And I still didn't trust it, even when she told me, and through the point in that I felt that I said to her, you little son of a gun, have you been putting thoughts in my head this whole time? And she just started to crack up and she said, yes, Daddy, yes. And we fell into a contagious laughter for 20 minutes. 20 minutes of nonstop laughter is cathartic in and of itself, but that wasn't the catharsis. The catharsis was we had finally found a way for her to speak to me and for me to understand her. After that 20 minutes of laughing, she's never once yelled, tantrumed, or attacked me again. Because now she has a way of communicating, and now I have a way of hearing. And I can't say I hear her every single time, but I hear her enough now that I understand her. I would have been happy if the story ended there. but I got a little greedy. I said, I don't think my daughter's all that different from everybody else. Her actions may be a little bit more raw and a little bit more unfiltered than everybody else, but maybe not even. I started to look at the corporations I worked with and the businesses I went to. I started to look at the families I worked with to counsel them and help them to live a more Mosaic connection between them. I started to look at governments that I worked with. So we were working with the government of Jamaica at the time. I started to look in the prisons and in the hospitals, in the schools. And I started to see that every single person acted like my daughter. When they spoke and they didn't get heard, they yelled. When they yelled and they didn't get heard, they created chaos. When they created chaos and they didn't get heard, they started to destroy. I started to see that it wasn't even limited to people. Our environment was doing it to us. Look what's happening with coronavirus. Look what's happening with hurricanes and earthquakes and all the stuff that's going on, fires. When the earth speaks to us and we don't hear it, it yells, it tantrums, it attacks. I started to look at terrorists that blow up buildings. Guess what? Who's listening to them? Nobody's listening to them. They're trying to say something, but they're not getting heard. And so they have to resort to blowing up a building. Finally, someone may hear them. And my 31-year-old daughter, who's never been able to have a conversation with anybody in her whole life, wouldn't it be ironic if she was the one that taught me how to resolve conflict? If she was the one that brought the formula of talk, yell, tantrum, attack, that would resolve the way our businesses function, our hospitals function, our educational systems functions, our families function, our government functions, our relationships with each other function. Wouldn't that be miraculous? If someone nobody expected would be able ever to communicate, just gave one of the greatest messages that could ever be given. And so what that made me do is it made me start to listen to the people that nobody listens to speak to the people nobody speaks to, because my daughter would be passed by without anybody even attempting to speak to her. So would the garbage man, so would the homeless guy, so would the person that's wandering on the streets. But what I realized is the people that I don't listen to are also my wife. She came in one day in the midst of me planning the trip. And she said, "Can I have a few minutes of your time?" I said, "Absolutely, baby. What do you need?" And she said something to me and I said, "I think that's great." And she turned to go out the door and she turned around midstream and she said, "You didn't hear a word I said, did you?" And I said, "Damn it, you're right. I'm so sorry. I was so preoccupied. Say it again and sit down and let me slow down." The people that no one listens to are the square pegs that the schools try to put in round holes. And then they give up on them because there are enough round holes that go in round pegs that they can get their test scores to be good enough that they don't have to worry about the square pegs. They're the CEOs of companies who don't feel that they could ever really say truly what they want to say to their employees because their employees would be hurt or their employees would think differently of them. They're the employees in those same companies that don't feel like they can say anything to their CEOs because they could be bad mouth and put into a box and then held accountable by all their associates. And I realized who in the world is listening to who. All you have to do is look at American politics right now to see the ramifications of what happens when one side of the country doesn't listen to the other side. It's crazy. And all of that could be resolved by a conversation I had with a woman who's never been able to have a conversation with anybody. Isn't that ironic?
That's beautiful, Danny. Thanks. And what I was thinking about as you were speaking is what comes from the listening. It goes back to something you said at the beginning where often in our piece, Piece, we say something to be heard, to be right, to be whatever it is. And what I think is really, beautiful, and it aligns with a lot of my own thinking or work or effort, is that things can be said that don't have to be responded to or reacted to. That it's just a matter of speaking them. That in that process, we don't know how, we don't know why, we don't know when, a resolution will come.
Yeah.
But when we go to something and say, okay, you speak now, I speak, okay, now let's figure it out, right? It puts it in some, like some formula, right? It's okay, point, counterpoint, now let's let the arbiter decide, or let's argue it out between us.
Yeah.
And I know this can seem not just even woo-woo, but like ineffectual, that because it seems counterintuitive that, well, two people could speak and just speak their truth that may not need to be resolved, that may not even have a resolution, seemingly.
So remember, the Mosaic is all about what if what we see is not really what is? What if nothing is as it seems? What if the conflict is not that you think one way and I think the other, but rather the conflict is you don't allow me to say to you what I believe. You don't allow yourself to accept what I believe. You don't allow yourself to listen to what I believe. Because if you really listened to what I believe and you really heard what I believe and you really accepted it, I've never in 65 years been told, Danny, you have to believe like me. But when I've listened to somebody and I heard them, when I've acknowledged and validated that what they're saying is true for them, and I get that, and when I've loved and accepted them, we don't know how it happened. But when the walls between them down, we already are finding resolution. And that brings the walls down. When people feel safe in our presence, their walls come down. When we feel safe in their presence, our walls come down. And when we stand eyeball to eyeball with each other and we actually see each other and feel each other and say, boy, that's really important to you. There's work that we're doing in another dimension that is beautiful work. I don't know if it will ever come to fruition in my lifetime. But there's a scientist out of Stanford University that has found a way to use AI in coordination with human intelligence to allow the human being and the mind of the human being to think in a collective. He watched the way birds make decisions. He watched the way bees built hives. He watched the way fish swam. They didn't have a leader. They were one collective mind. If you watch birds fly, you might think they're flying in a formation and the leader is leading it, but there's not enough time to move in the direction. They're all moving together as one thing. They're just in a formation. If you watch the way fish swim, it's exactly the same thing. If you watch the way bees build their hive, they send thousands of bees out to find where the best place is. They all come back and they with whatever certainty they have, they vibrate more or less, but they come back into the hive and they start vibrating and they move back and forth with the hive to one place to another until there's no resistance. At the place where there's no resistance, they go and build their hive, and collectively they decide where to build their hive. And collectively, that's why the bees have continued to thrive. But humans don't act that way, not naturally. We vote, or we decide, or we teach, or we change, or we fix, or we lead, or we govern. And they're saying, what would happen if we came together as a hive mentality? And so in order to prove the validity of what their system was, they created a gambling site where they could predict with more predictive analysis, finer, better results than experts in the field, handicappers, people that should know better than anybody who's going to win and who's going to lose. And they've done it from everything from the Academy Awards to the Kentucky Derby to the World Series in America to who's going to win the what I guess you call football over there, the football matches, and they are amazingly correct. And they did it that way. They wanted to see, we need to have some solutions that we come up with that are verifiably correct. We need to know that when this collective hive decides this team's going to win or that team's going to win, and they do win, we need to know how they figured that out. And so I went to them and I said, that's great for gambling. So you're going to make some money and you can get really rich gambling on the right things. What about world problems? Would we be able to take the problems of the world and put them into the same formula that you're using? Would we be able to have we the people decide what problems we want to solve and how we want to solve them? And would I be able to create something that would ask people to join a minority of 1 billion people? A minority of 1 billion doesn't seem much like a minority, but there's 7 other billion people that are going to think we're crazy, and that's great. Let them think we're crazy. But if we could find a minority of 1 billion that would donate $1 a month, $12 a year, and there's some places where $12 a year is like $1 billion to them. And there'll be some people that would say, hey, I'll do something. I'll do something for you. I'll give $2 a month so that we can support our brothers and sisters who can't afford to give $1 a month. So that 1 billion people could come into this system and they could be in these rooms and create decisions, and we could algorithmize the decisions that they make to come up with real solutions, and we could figure out what those solutions are. Then we would be able to decide what we want to solve, how we want to solve it, and fund the solution to it without anybody needing political parties, charities, anything. And in America, our Constitution starts with 3 words, we the people. I would love to see us create a we the people world all around the world, where we the people decide what we want to solve, we the people decide how to solve it, and we the people fund it. I don't know if it will ever work, or if it, I mean, I believe it will work. I don't know if it will work in my lifetime.
You said something that I kind of want to challenge a bit, because you said that humans were kind of not really wired this way, and I would argue that we are. That if you look back at the start of civilizations, we are a social creature. That actually we have both of those things. That I was listening to something today. I can't remember who said it, but was talking about that humans have essentially 2 kinds of minds. That we have a primate mind that is based on competition, that is always looking at itself vis-a-vis Danny and a million or billion or 8 billion other participants. And we do have collective hive mind, because otherwise we would not have developed civilization, societies, tribes, and in my view, the systems that we use, which they have been created by humans, but they're not natural systems. The economic, socioeconomic, particularly the economic structure, which is based on competition, we grow up assuming, it's kind of goes back to the perception. We grow up assuming that we are just a piece rather than the mosaic. Kind of brings us back to where we were.
Totally. And I would stand corrected in that. Maybe the way that I can say it that's really clearer than the way that I did say it is not that we don't have the capacity to do it, because we have the capacity to do anything. But the way we're operating right now, the human operating system, the way it's functioning right now, is in a competitive model, in a vertical model, where I teach you, I fix you, I change you, I help you, and I need help, and I want help, and I'm not as good as you, and I have to look up to you, and you have to lead me because I don't know where to go. And I believe that eventually what will happen, the story between the lines of the mosaic, is a horizontal world where nobody is better or teaches. But we literally just hold each other, and then holding each other and loving each other and being that mortar that keeps the arms held together. We create artistry that is so much more spectacular than anything we could ever do on our own. We create solutions to problems better than anything we could ever have done. And so we build mosaics. So there must be the consciousness of bringing broken pieces together to create wholeness. And we do have that consciousness. So I stand corrected. It's just not the modus operandi that we're standing in right now.
That is for sure. And as I've gotten into my grayness and fatness, I appreciate the conflicts and challenges around us, because I believe that they point us to those possibilities.
100%. 100%.
Yeah, and it can be easy to see whether it's the economic, the pandemic. To me, it's they're signals. I know they affect lives, and I'm not trying to belittle that, but they, on a larger scale, right? It's as if pulling back from the mosaic, and all you're looking at is the pieces and taking out what binds them together.
Yeah. And most of us live our own life, the citizens of our own being, the thoughts of our own mind, as disconnected pieces of our own mosaic. We have this thought, we have that thought. We think they compete with each other. We're in living conflict with our thought systems. What would happen if we brought all of those pieces together to create the mosaic of Taylor, or the mosaic of Danny, or the mosaic of the listener? What would that look like? And how would then mosaic and my mosaic coexist together? How would we continue to expand out those pieces to include everything that is not like us and everything that is like us? Because everything is like us and everything is us. Because the creator is creating the creation at the very same time the creation is creating the creator.
I feel like that's a good place to stop.
Perfect.
Thank you, Danny, for taking time today and helping me and helping us to co-create this mosaic.
I love time with you. I mean, we need to spend more of it. I love the thoughtfulness of the conversation. Look, within the first 2 minutes of talking to me, you pointed out something that I didn't even see it existed, that I was talking about, but I couldn't even articulate, which was, I wrote the book, but the characters wrote me. And so the creator was creating the creation while the creation was creating the creator. I mean, I love that. And I believe that exists on every realm of this. I believe that exists in our businesses. I believe that exists in our schools. I believe that exists in our religion. I believe that exists everywhere if we would only understand that simple maxim.
Yeah. And I'm grateful for even speaking it, to listen to it and to hear it in that loop as well. So thank you for hearing it and reflecting it back.
Absolutely.
Thank
you
brother.
So much. My honor, really my honor.
Let's call it a co-honor.
Co-honor. Done.
Cool.
Thanks for listening. If you like what you heard, go on, be adventurous. Click the subscribe button. And join us next week for a new adventure. Until then,